YouTube friends, what's going on? David Lee back with a brand new video. Today we're talking about Blackmagic RAW versus PRORES. For some of you out there looking to purchase or use the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, even the 6K, what is it you need to know when it comes to using RAW versus PRORES? When it comes to latitude or dynamic range, they're basically the same. Blackmagic RAW does give you a little bit more in post-production as far as bringing back your highlights and also pushing back in your shadow areas. That being said, PRORES isn't to be ignored because it's still 10-bit 422. You're getting LT, you're getting 422, and you're also getting HQ, whether you're in 1920 by 1080, UHD 3840 by 2160, or 4K DCI 4096 by 2160. Recording times will vary depending on if you're using, say LT versus HQ, if you're using 1080p versus 4K DCI. As we all know, filming say an event in a whole day, like a wedding or like a corporate event, is different than a music video, and that's different than a documentary, and that's different than a narrative piece. Recording media only lasts so long, and depending on your budget, maybe you only have enough for a couple SD cards, right? Let's just be realistic about that. Maybe you only have enough for 1 terabyte SSD. Now, obviously, you can offload footage if that luxury is at your convenience, but say you're in a situation where you can't offload footage during the day, you have to just, use a card, take it out, put in a new card, take it out, put in your next card, right? I found a really good resource online that shows recording limits for CFast card, SD card, and also for CFast card with like all the frame rates and all the resolutions. So I'll put a link in the description below. You guys can check that out, look at it at your leisure, and also use it as kind of like a reference to see if you're going into a project. Okay, cool, if I have like a 1 terabyte SSD, this is how much I'm gonna get using Blackmagic RAW 8:1 4K 60. Now, when it comes to image quality itself, I can't tell a difference, but I'll put up a couple of different clips, a couple of different short sequences using Blackmagic RAW and also PRORES HQ. I'm going to be doing everything in 4K DCI just to make it a little bit easier for everyone. And you can kind of let me know if you can tell a difference. Now, maybe if you're pixel peeping all the way to like 400% or 500%, perhaps you can tell some kind of like fine difference, right, between RAW and PRORES HQ. Depending if you're using, Blackmagic RAW 3:1 or 5:1, my experience 12:1 is pretty much all you need. You can go down to 8:1, you can go down to 4 or 5:1, 3:1, but I mean, I've shot 4K 60, 4K 48 frames per second, 4K 23.998, and 12:1, honestly, I've never had any issues as far as image quality, things breaking down, colors looking weird, anything like that when using 12:1. Some of you, you want to shoot like 3:1 all the time, and that's totally fine. So if you're comparing 3:1 or 5:1 to say, PRORES 422 HQ, you're getting about almost like the same amount of compression when it comes to saving data on your SSD, on your SD card, or your CFast card. Now, how about when it comes to recovering an image? If you overexpose an image or underexpose an image, right? What do you get when it comes to using RAW versus PRORES HQ? Well, RAW, you're immediately going to have more latitude in bringing back your highlights and pushing in your shadows, like I said before. The reason why is because when you're in DaVinci Resolve, in the color grading tab, you have the options to dial back your exposure. You have the options to adjust like your white levels, your black levels, your highlight roll off, your shadow roll off, contrast, your midpoint, right? These are all like kind of advanced things you can use to bring back an image. Now, when it comes to PRORES, right, you don't really have those options. You pretty much have to expose the shot like you're supposed to expose it. And you're going through the color grading process, the color correction process. You have to go into that mindset like, okay, cool. Like I remember I kind of blew up those highlights, let's see what I can recover, and then go from there. Now, what about in a situation where you're just being hired to be the cinematographer, be the person behind the camera, and you're offloading footage to that person or entity at the end of the day? I think in that regard, most of the time, like 90 99% of the time they're gonna want ProRes files. That way they can give it to their editors, they can easily manipulate the footage and do the editing, get it online, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the website, whatever it is, right? So in that regard, it's good to know how to get your exposure, get your white balance, get your tint, all of those things that you really should be doing in the beginning, so that way when you give it off to your client, they have everything that they need. Whereas with RAW, I think a lot of people, they think like, oh cool, I can shoot in RAW, I don't have to worry about my exposure, I can just bring it back, or white balance, whatever, I can just set it to whatever and bring it back in post-production, right? And I feel like that's not the best thing to do in a situation, again, where you have to give footage and clips to a client. They're not gonna know what to do with like raw footage, So that being said, use PRORES, use Blackmagic RAW, but always expose for the image the way it's supposed to be exposed. For me, I actually use a combination of both Blackmagic RAW and PRORES. If I'm doing interviews, most of the time it's Blackmagic RAW, 12:1, sometimes 8:1. The reason why is because I know with an interview, I'm gonna have a more opportunity to dial in like my colors, dial in the actual grade itself using RAW. When I'm doing any kind of like insert shots or detail shots, you would think I would shoot RAW, right? Because then I have like so much more ability to like bring stuff back. But I actually don't want to spend that time for like insert shots or detail shots, unless it was like a talent or something interacting where I have emotion, right? But if it's typically like a wide shot or like an ultra wide shot, if it's again like detail shot like food or something like that, makes my job a lot easier in post-production when I can just focus on interview. I can be the painter, so to speak, right? For interviews or for moments where I'm capturing talent and emotions. But for everything else, PRORES, make it fast, make it easy. It makes my life a lot easier. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel as always, just so you're notified of new content coming out. And remember, friends, every day you have an opportunity to create your experience and to write and tell your own story. My name is David Lee, and I will catch you guys in the next video.